from the riverbanks to the end zone goal. We talk big games and backwoods trails with hometown voices and Bates County tales. Tailgate TV, where the county comes alive with Friday night lights and early morning bite. Cody and Brad bringing it to your screen, telling tales from the bleachers to the tree-lined green. Just to the tree-lined green. Tailgate TV. Small town stories, ride shotgun.
Welcome to another wonderful edition of Tailgate TV. We have Todd Hecox here with us, past amateur fighter with a record of 12-5, current Butler PD officer with many years in law enforcement. He is the new canine officer here in town, or soon to be, and longtime friend of the show, and part of the reason that we're having Scandalous Jiu Jitsu coming to town. So, Todd, we're happy to have you.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited about your shop over there. I really am. I think it's going to be great. But you're from Bates County area.
I am.
Right? And so a little background. What and when in the world did you start getting interested in combat sports?
Well, I had interest in a lot of sports growing up.
Okay.
I wasn't necessarily too interested in combat sports growing up, just regular team sports with the school and whatnot. My problem was I was 140 pounds when I graduated high school, so I was a little guy. So being able to get into MMA, it's all weight class based.
Right.
So I was going against, wasn't going against a 215-pound middle linebacker. I was going against guys my size.
Right.
And I'm tall for the weight class as well, so I was able to use that to my advantage.
I was going to say that helps.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember my son wrestling in high school, and he wrestled at 160, I think. And it was always different when he would go against someone who was tall, lanky, as opposed to someone who was maybe a little bit more stocky build. Is that the way to say it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
You mentioned school, so you went to Miami.
I did.
And so what did you play? I mean, you mentioned you played some team sports and stuff. What kind of sports did you enjoy back then?
So I went to elementary school at Drexel.
Okay.
And then I transitioned from there in junior high to Miami. So I really loved soccer at Drexel. But then when I moved to Miami, they didn't have soccer.
Sure.
right.
So baseball, football, basketball. Football was my favorite sport.
Okay.
Maybe not my best sport because I was, again, 140 pounds.
Sure.
But we played 8-man, so a lot of fast-paced stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, after that, I just really enjoyed team sports, but wasn't able to do that, once you got out of your high school and stuff.
Sure.
So that's kind of what transitioned me into it for sure.
Okay.
I was just going to say, your face looks pretty good for having a 12-5 record. 17 bouts, right? I mean,
Yeah,
because that MMA stuff's serious
yeah,
business.
that's not including, like I did several kickboxing bouts and
Okay. Wow.
grappling bouts and stuff. So I had somewhere around, I'd have to count them up. I got it somewhere around 30 altogether. So.
Okay. So what was your, I guess, out of those, which did you prefer? Like the MMA, the kickboxing, like what was more of your cup of tea?
I did enjoy kickboxing. I don't know. They each have their purpose.
Is that where you got the nickname Head Kick?
Sort of. Yeah,
Okay.
a little bit.
Okay.
We'll probably get into that at some point
Okay.
today. But yeah, I enjoyed all three. I enjoyed competing in all three. Probably MMA was my favorite just because, it's the mixed martial arts. It's everything in one. So.
Yeah. Nothing really off limits. Just,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of MMA, a lot of that, I mean, that's pretty neat. The 12-5 record, that's pretty impressive.
It is impressive.
And most of those wins, it came from submission.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that kind of your game plan? I mean, going into matches, I want to tap this dude out. Is that kind of how you roll?
No.
Okay.
I love the stand-up game. I very much, like I said, I enjoyed kickboxing. I love the stand-up game. I'm probably a better striker than a grappler.
Okay.
But my problem is going to school at Miami, we didn't have wrestling. So I didn't have that wrestling base to really know how to defend a takedown, which is something I definitely worked on through training and
Sure.
through the years. But my very first coach told me, he's like, you got to do two things, or one of two things. You got to either learn to defend a takedown or get better on the ground. And so I got better on the ground and tried to get better at takedowns, but still wasn't the best at it.
Yeah.
But I just got better on the ground, and so I learned, how to fight on the ground if I did get taken down. I was typically tried to keep it standing as long as I could, and was always hunting for a knockout. But sometimes you get taken down and you do what you can.
Sure. Well, and did you have a favorite hold when you were on the ground? Is there something that you'd be like, if I get you in this, I know I got you?
Yeah, a triangle choke for
Okay.
sure. A leg triangle from the guard position on your back was probably my favorite. I think I had 5 wins, I think, by triangle choke. My pretty sure 2 of my titles were by triangle choke.
Now, what titles, you mentioned that, and that wasn't a question, but it was something I was interested because, even the promo pictures we put out, you got, multiple title belts. So what titles did you hold? What?
I held the 135-pound title down in El Dorado Springs at Collision in the Cage.
Okay.
I held the 135-pound title at in Sedalia, Missouri, for Ron Garrison's promotions. All three of them were through. One of them was at Collision in the Cage, and then the other 3 were for Ron Garrison. One was at the 130-pound, and then one was at the 135-pound, which I defended once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And I'm just going to say, those belts are impressive just to look at them.
Yeah, I was going to say, how was that feeling? Just, the first time you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
won like that. That's probably got to be a really good feeling.
It was cool. It was definitely something that I worked hard towards, so it was good to get that for sure.
Yeah, the validation of all the hard work you put in is actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's and it's so important, right? I mean, it's so important.
Yeah, and if you're around town, one of my very good friends, Jeff Markle, he has his gym right there on the south side of the square.
Yeah, old school training.
Yep,
or old school fitness.
Personal training and self defense. Yeah, my belts are still in his window right now.
Is that right? That's awesome. Going to be moving them over to the.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I'm thinking so.
Depends on what he has to say about it.
Hey, I'm for sure doing that.
Tell him to arm wrestle you over.
Yeah, I ain't winning that one.
No, he's got some arms on him.
He does.
Yeah. So what was, sounds like you've had a lot of moments in the cage. What was like your toughest moment?
I would say probably 2012-ish. I kickboxed this kid, and I say kid because he was like 17, I believe.
Okay.
And I was 20, probably 23.
Okay.
And he beat me up pretty good.
Really?
He trained at a really good gym. He ended up going into the Army, and I'm still friends with him on social media and whatnot, and he's doing great things with his life, and he's not the same size as he once was, but he beat me pretty bad. We ended up going all 3 rounds to a decision. I lost, and somewhere in the second round, I collapsed a lung.
Oh.
And so I got taken to the hospital after the fight and had to have a chest tube put in and had to reinflate my lung. I was in the ICU for 3 nights. I was in the hospital for a total of 7 days. I remember I got out on Thanksgiving Day. And so I was super happy to get out of the hospital on Thanksgiving and be able to eat a little.
Yeah.
Right, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was your last fight.
No. Right.
Would have been mine.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I was.
Sure.
I definitely competed like 3 or 4 months after that again. So
what? I guess if you go through all of that, and you're still loving it in the middle of it, why do you finally hang it up? What finally makes you say, all right, I'm done?
Well, I got into law enforcement.
Okay.
That was really my purpose, my reasoning on why I stopped. I also had, I had a lot of fights and I had a good record.
Mhm.
So I was doing it for fun.
Yeah.
I was doing it for a hobby. But you get into getting a good record and these other promotions start looking at you, and then they want to put you against some of their guys that they have up and coming. The problem is being down here, living in the country,
Yeah.
here in the southern part, you might say, hey, I'm going to train with this guy. Oh, he wrestled in high school, or this guy has some boxing experience, whatever the case is. Nothing against any of my training partners that I had, but these guys are living in the city and they're hiring, professional boxers and black belts in jiu-jitsu, and they have so many different resources than we have down here.
Sure.
They're also training 3 times a day,
Yeah.
as opposed to me training 3 times a week.
Right.
So some of them guys that I was training with and competing against, some of them guys went to the UFC.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, and I've seen several of those guys fight in UFC or bigger promotions, and it just wasn't something. That wasn't what I wanted to do. It was just fun for me. It was just a hobby. So,
Yeah. Well, and I saw, and this may be completely left field. You may not even know what I'm talking about. And I don't remember the name. It's been so long ago. But I think there was a kid out of Eldo that was roughly our age that was in the UFC now, and he was having a fight or two. And I wish I could remember his name and ask you if you knew of him or not, but I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. There's several local guys that have made it big. I know there's a guy over in Sedalia that relocated to Kansas City area and started training there, and he's fighting in the UFC. There's definitely several locals that have made it big, you know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Is that, I guess, would you say, or would you know, is that a growing interest around this area, or is that something that's kind of just stayed where it's at, or do you think there's more and more folks getting into it?
So with MMA, the used to be anybody could fight. I mean, they would pull people out of the crowd if they needed to fill a spot or something, you know.
Right.
But the state, a few years back, the state started regulating it, and they took over, and they've made it a lot harder. You have to be able to prove that you train at a legitimate gym, and you have to
have a little
Protect
credential.
yourself.
Yeah,
you have to be able to protect yourself, and they don't want you know, really really lopsided fights to where they're looking bad as a promotion. So
Sure.
it's just about kind of protecting themselves. Yeah.
interesting.
Well, and over the last, and I don't know how many years it's been, probably now it's probably been 15 years. The MMA stuff has just exploded
In popularity.
Yeah, that's really across the world, but across the nation for sure. Which is, I mean, it's a good thing, obviously, but yeah, you see some of those fights, and again, those people are serious that you watch on TV or wherever, but even some of those get really bad.
Yeah.
And I would hate to see some guy that thought he was tough, at his hometown come in there and because that's serious. I mean, those guys understand everything about fighting. It's crazy to watch that. But okay, you talked about law enforcement, that was kind of you transitioned because you wanted to go into the law enforcement thing, and you started here in Butler. Is that correct?
Bates County, yeah.
Oh, Bates County.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went outside of Bates County, gained some experience, that kind of thing. You're back. Canine. I love that part of it. But what's all that been like for you as far as just gaining that experience?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey for sure. You know, I worked at the sheriff's office here in Bates County for 6 years, and I loved it there. You know, Chad Anderson and his crew, you know, they have a really good department over there, and I wanted more, and I wanted more out of my career and stuff that I wasn't really going to get in a smaller community. So I went to Greene County Sheriff's Office in Springfield.
Yep.
I learned quickly that place wasn't for me.
Okay.
For some reasons, it just wasn't. It just didn't fit me as a person.
Gotcha.
And
They're busy down there too, by the way.
They're very, very busy. And
I think, weren't they on the first, this, like, again, left field, but weren't they on the first, like, live PD?
Yeah.
See, okay.
Yeah,
I thought they were.
And they're doing live PD again, and they're supposed to be
Are
on it
they?
again. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm not sure that I would have put that on my resume, right? But,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we were one of the first shows because
Yeah.
our town's serious.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But so when I kind of learned that place wasn't going to be for me, I just I had a buddy that was working over at Crawford County Sheriff's Office over just east of Rolla, right on I-44. And so I went over there, and I had a blast over there. You know, law enforcement as a whole is pretty understaffed, and over there was a lot of campsites, so people would travel there during the weekends, during the summer, to float, to camp, and things would just explode. I mean,
I bet.
I got a lot of exposure to a lot of different things, you know, tons of different things. I mean, pretty much everything that you could want, I got there. So, and that was great. I had a great time, but over some time, it definitely got exhausting.
Oh, I bet.
And so, my mom, we were having some issues there. My mom had gotten sick basically. And so we decided to move back. There was a few different reasons we decided to move back, but we decided to move back. You know, I've got a almost 4-year-old son, and so he's my only son. He's my only child.
Yeah.
And so being able to have some of my family, you know, be able to be closer again, it definitely paid off. But I definitely learned while I was there that I missed home. You know, I got homesick. That's the easiest way to say it.
Sure.
And this is Butler. I mean, people are going to say what they want about Butler, but at the end of the day, this is generally my home. So, being able to take some of the experience I got, move back here, I missed serving my community.
Gotcha.
Nothing against those communities.
Sure.
But it's not my community.
Sure.
So, you know, being able to see familiar faces again and just being able to serve people who I care about.
Sure. And I was thinking when you said Rolla, it's a beautiful part of our state too, by the way. Not that Bates County's not, but it's a real pretty spot over there. That's a nice place.
So how long have you been back in Butler?
We came back November of 23.
Okay.
So
Okay.
about a year and a half.
Okay.
Okay.
A little over a year and a half. Yeah.
Nice. And now with all of that, it's been mentioned, but you're currently about to be the canine. Well, I guess you're technically the canine officer, but you're finishing up the training with all of that. That's exciting. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, that's going to be a valuable asset here in town, is it not?
For sure. Yeah. The police department's been great. They took me in with open arms, and they've, I was able to pretty well as soon as I got here, was really able to start trying to focus on a few things. And, my supervisors there were really open to, allowing me to use some of my experience and some of my knowledge to better the department and the town. So being able to get a canine was something that I really thought was necessary. The sheriff's office has a couple dogs, but neither one of them live near Butler.
Right.
They live in Bates County, but not in Butler. So
Yeah. Bates County is a large county.
it is, and the legality. You get into the legalities of it.
Sure.
There's a time limit on getting a dog, and I live right here in town, so
You're going to be busy.
we are going to be busy. Yep, and I've talked a lot about this, so it's about time for me to stop talking about it and put it in action.
Yeah.
So that's definitely my goal. We're gonna get a lot of drugs off the streets, and
Awesome.
we're gonna do our best to clean this town up and get some people behind bars at least for a little while. So
Yeah.
The canine units are amazing. Those dogs are, and I don't know what breed of a dog it is, but just any of them you watch, they're so smart, and they just want to please you, right? So badly, right? They're willing to do anything. And obviously not wanting to wish anything, but that also keeps humans safe,
for sure.
right? Because that dog's willing to do what it can. And I'll tell you something. A guy talking to me is one thing. A dog barking makes me think a whole other set of things, right?
And that's kind of
Those dogs are serious.
I was thinking that, and maybe you can attest, and maybe you can't. I don't know, but I've seen before on just shows like Live PD or stuff like that, where even if they don't have a dog, sometimes they'll bluff it. They'll yell "We're releasing the canine," and that person will come right out, because I mean that's a scary thought.
I'd be lying if I said I've never done that, and it worked. So
and I've even seen the guy will start barking or something, and that person will come running out, and then I would too.
Yeah, and I had a canine over at Crawford County as well, so
That's all.
I was able to kind of, I knew what to expect.
Sure.
Whenever we started talking about getting the canine with the police department, I pretty much knew what we needed and kind of how some ways to go about it. I used some of my resources that I had to be able to figure out exactly what was needed and to figure out the best way to do it. So,
Sure.
But we received a lot of money from the public. We received some grants.
Great.
We received quite a few grants, and was able to really minimize that cost for the city to be able to make it happen.
Yeah, and it seemed like the city was pretty on board and
Yeah.
happy to have it. I mean, it's an awesome thing. I'm excited about it, and I'm sure you're pretty over the moon about it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's terrific. All right, we're going to take a little short commercial break and be right back here on Tailgate TV.
Here at Butler Sonic, we strive to provide exceptional customer service. Using our friendly car hops, we provide delicious food and, of course, ice cold drinks. We are locally owned and operated and have been for over 40 years. We're honored to be part of the Bates County community. If you don't feel like cooking, come by your local Sonic here. We'll get you all taken care of. Live free, eat Sonic. And remember, the podcast is always better with the Sonic drink in your hand.
Welcome back. After that commercial break, we are back here.
We didn't leave.
No, we're all three here.
Yeah.
Nobody escaped
Nobody snuck in.
or snuck in.
That
That's
we
right.
know of. I guess the door's unlocked.
That's right.
But we're going to jump right back in here with Todd.
Our live
No.
studio audience.
We've done like one with a studio audience. We had one person that counts.
Yeah, they left quickly.
Yes. So you've been an amateur MMA fighter. Now you're a canine officer. Did those paths, so now we're going to get into this Scandalous Jiu Jitsu. Did those paths kind of help prepare you for this endeavor? I mean, and what exactly is your titles? You're an instructor. I know you were pretty instrumental in bringing it here. What's kind of behind the scenes? What's your role with the gym?
Yeah, so Joey Scanlon, he's the owner.
Okay.
He owns a gym in Lebanon, Missouri,
Okay.
and he's kind of been my resource. He he owns his gym and he wanted to have some other locations.
Sure.
And he talked for a while. We've talked about it for a while now. But we finally made the decision to try to make it happen. There's some things we had to figure out as far as
Of course.
who was going to run classes. He lives over the Lake of the Ozarks. He owns his gym in Lebanon. He teaches classes there all throughout the week. Just doesn't have the availability to come over here,
Sure.
to 2.5 hours.
That's a drive.
Yeah. So I started talking with some of the resources that I have, people that I had met over the years, and to see if we could have some people that were interested in helping out, basically. And so I found the building, Gary Ratliff. He's been amazing.
Great guy.
He's been amazing to helping us out from multiple different aspects. But I was on patrol one night, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I've been driving around, and I just talked with Joey about, where could we have this gym at? And I called a couple places, and they're like, "Oh, $1,000 a month, like just not something that we could financially do." So
Sure.
I was actually out on. I decided every now and then on night shift, if there's not a whole lot going on, I'll do some extra foot patrol around the square.
Sure.
And I was out walking around, just checking buildings and shaking doors and making sure everything was secure. And I remember that part of the building being the old part of the laundromat. And at one point there was some arcade games and stuff in there. And I was like, it's a little small, but the light bulb kind of came on. And that next morning at probably 8:30 that morning, I was calling Gary Ratliff saying, "Hey, what are you doing with this build? What are you doing with this spot?" So that's kind of how it all transpired. There was a few things in there that needed to be done, some construction and whatnot. My good buddy James Burris owns Insight Sewer. They were able to go in there and help us out with removing some plumbing and some piping and stuff. So really just kind of using my resources. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do everything myself. I don't know how to do anything, but I know a lot of people who do. So,
And that, that's very,
So important.
very wise and instrument. I've learned that too, just throughout life, relying on people that know how to do things better than you know how to do them.
for sure.
It gets you a lot farther than thinking, I know how to do this better than anybody else. I can do it. That's the right attitude to go about doing stuff.
Absolutely, for sure.
So, why jujitsu, and what style of? Because there's a couple of styles of jujitsu. I'm assuming. Well, I won't assume. I'll ask you, why jujitsu and what kind is it?
So jujitsu, they call it the gentle art for a reason. So, the plan could possibly be to move into something more like an MMA based gym. Probably not in the current building that we're in for the size,
Sure.
but it was a good starting point. It was a really good starting point. I believe in jiu-jitsu, and so being able to train it was definitely something that I thought would do well in this community. And so that's kind of how it all transpired. Like I said, with Joey having his knowledge and the success that he's had in a smaller community, definitely made it more of a possibility.
Okay.
As far as the style goes, so there's typically Brazilian jiu-jitsu,
Right.
and then there's also American jiu-jitsu.
Right.
American jiu-jitsu is more wrestling based. One of our instructors, which I'll get into, he actually founded American Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. Wow.
And so he has tons of experience. So people often ask, what the difference between Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and American Jiu-Jitsu. There's not a lot.
Right.
Number one, it's spelled differently.
Okay.
And then number two is it's more of a wrestling base. So
Gotcha.
there's not a whole lot of differences. All the techniques are pretty much the same.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, and I'm going to jump ahead here,
Yeah,
and,
jump ahead.
and I apologize if getting out of order, but you mentioned, wrestling based versus, non-wrestling based necessarily. Are you going to consider maybe? I guess I'm trying to word how to phrase this in my head. Working with like wrestling leagues or wrestling students at the school, competition, stuff like that. Is that something that you focus on, or that would be beneficial for somebody that's growing up wanting to wrestle, coming and doing jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, for sure. I've reached out to a couple of the wrestling coaches here in Butler and spoke with them. I have several wrestlers who are interested in coming to the gym.
Awesome.
Definitely having a wrestling background and then getting into jiu-jitsu is the best way to go about it, because you've already won half the battle. You already know, body mechanics and how to move on the ground. So definitely is a benefit to have wrestling experience getting into jiu-jitsu. I just grappled with, we were up at the gym last night. One of my other instructors was up there helping me with some stuff, and he brought his 12-year-old son who wrestles in school and also does jiu-jitsu. And so I grappled with this 12-year-old 85-pound kid, and the thing I like about that is he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And if you give him something, he's going to take it.
Right.
So like you have to be on guard.
Right.
And there was a couple times he grabbed a hold of me and I had to defend it.
Right.
Because if I didn't, like I would have tapped out or I would have went to sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
He knows that technique that well that I fully guarantee you if I would have just not defended it, I would have been sleeping right there in the gym. So
That's pretty neat, though.
But yeah, being able to work with a kid even,
Mm-hmm.
you know, helps me out even. So
would definitely recommend parents whose kids are interested in wrestling, even just maybe at the school level, like
Sure, yeah.
come get into jiu-jitsu. It'll help.
absolutely.
We have a large youth wrestling
Yes.
in Bates County. Not just Butler. Butler has a large one as well, but
Well, and I
there's
see
a bunch of
Adrian's
kids,
got some
Adrian
pretty
kids.
good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know there's some kids from time to time, not on a big degree, because obviously with Rich Hill, they don't have a wrestling program in their school.
Right.
But there are a few kids that come up and do the wrestling here in Butler from Rich Hill and around in the surrounding areas. So, yeah, but it can't do anything but help, right?
Yeah.
Because it is about understanding how to move your body in ways to benefit you.
For sure. I would say, you know, wrestling's great. Jiu-jitsu is more of, you know, body mechanics and positioning and leverage more so than strength, I guess you would say.
And a lot of thinking,
Yeah, for sure.
if you do this, what am I going to
It
do?
helps you in wrestling, right? Because you understand how to maneuver people's bodies and
Yeah, a lot of people often
leverage.
compare jiu-jitsu to chess, like
Mhm.
being, you know, 3 steps ahead of
Yeah,
your
sure.
opponent.
I see it.
So
See
I'm
that.
not any good at chess, but I might be if I tried.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely comparable for sure.
Awesome.
So talking about your instructors just real quickly, um, what is their, and I'm not asking you for like an in-depth, but their background, are they, and you know, a lot of this stuff and a lot of the people that in jiu-jitsu, there are belts and colors, obviously, white you begin with, and obviously they go all the way up to red eventually, but that's an elite group of guys. I think there's 40 in the nation or in the world that are red. Woo, can't imagine. But anyway, so talk about those guys for a minute,
So
and or girls if there are any.
yeah, so I mentioned Joey.
Mhm.
Joey owns a gym over there. Joey and I actually competed against each other many years
what?
ago. I did.
Okay.
Joey was a goofy guy that would fight anybody. A lot of times he was notoriously known for wearing leg weights
Oh,
to make weight for a fight because he
wow.
was so he was walking around about 120,
And just
125
fearless. He'd
pounds.
fight anybody. Huh?
And they would say, hey, we need this guy at 155 pounds, and Joey would be like, ooh, and they're like, well, you don't weigh 155 pounds, and they're like, let me step on the scale. Oh, he has leg weights on. So Joey would fight anybody, but because Joey would fight anyone, he didn't have a good record.
Sure.
He was fighting guys he shouldn't have fought.
Gotcha.
Joey got into jiu-jitsu, and
Okay.
he learned some discipline and learned that he shouldn't be fighting at 155 pounds. He shouldn't even be fighting at 135 pounds.
Right.
And so he got really good. He started actually fighting guys his own size, and he ended up going professional and had a few professional bouts. He was training over at the Lake of the Ozarks and ended up opening up his own gym in Lebanon, like I've stated. And yeah, he's amazing now. I competed against him in, I think, 2012. I knocked him out with a head kick.
Okay.
And him and I going against each other now, I'm pretty sure he takes offense to that because there's no competition now.
Right.
He mops the floor with me now. Like, it's
Gotcha.
not close.
You were a good motivator for him.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Credit yourself. You made him who he is today.
But say that. Yeah, I like that.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, I stopped fighting. I stopped really fighting as much and still trained some, but Joey just took it and ran with it.
Yeah.
He continued training, 5 or 6 days a week for the past 12 years.
Wow.
And he's a brown belt. He's super, super good. He's still only about 145 pounds. He's still a small guy, but just being able to see him at his skill set grab a hold of a 250-pound guy and that doesn't have much experience, it's crazy to see it. It's crazy.
And black belt is, I mean, that's elite as well. I
For
mean,
sure.
I think I was in preparing. I think I read that there's like 15,000 or something like that, and that may be which is
Still a
we're
lot.
light.
Pretty small
That's
number.
so
Yeah.
tiny.
Yeah.
Woo.
And getting your black belt in like Joey, in probably 12, 13 years, that's fast.
Yes, I was going to say that's quick.
It's pretty quick, but that's also training, 5 or 6 days a week. So,
You have to love it.
Yeah, for sure. And then so Steve he's done everything. I can't even explain what all Steve's done. He has owned a gym in California. He owned a gym in Colorado. He just recently retired his gym in Kansas.
Okay.
And so I've known Steve for years since I was fighting. He did blood work for us back when I was fighting.
Okay.
And so Steve's a big advocate for law enforcement and whatnot. So I actually ran into Steve at Tukasa one night.
Oh.
And I just went up to him and was like, "Are you Steve Crawford?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." Well, we started talking, and I told him about our idea to have a gym here in town, and he basically just gave me his number and said, if it comes about and you need some help, give me a call. I was like, "I don't want to do anything full time. I'm retired." But he actually bought some property out in Amaret.
Okay.
And he was, I guess, just sick of living in the city and decided he wanted to buy some property and enjoy the country life. And
It's a beautiful place to do it.
yeah, for sure. So he comes to Butler, and so I got to talking with him, and he's going to be teaching classes for us on Thursday nights.
Awesome.
So yeah, to have a guy like that, I mean, he's done it all. I mean, he was training UFC fighters before it was cool to be UFC fighters.
Right.
I mean, he's done it all.
Yeah.
It's crazy what all that guy's done.
That's
It sounds like you've got a pretty great group of folks.
Yeah. And then I have two other guys, if I can mention them right back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Travis Quarter. Travis was a promoter back when I was fighting.
Is that right?
He promoted hundreds of fights. He was super, super easy to fight for. He really took care of his guys. And I fought for him. And then a few years later, Travis got a hold of me about his interest in law enforcement. And so we kind of become friends, and he became a cop. And he's a cop. He's a cop up north,
Okay.
north of Butler now.
Good.
But he's a cop up north toward the city. But yeah, he's going to be teaching some classes for us. He was the one that was at the gym last night with me when I was rolling with his 12-year-olds.
Right.
He's going to bring his kids down, and they're going to be helping us with some kids classes as well.
That's awesome.
Their experience. And then my last instructor is Anthony LaPetra.
Okay.
And he was like somebody who used to fight with me back when I was fighting. And Anthony didn't compete a whole lot of time, but he put a lot of time and effort into the gym. And he's all now cauliflower eared up, and you can tell he's put in some time for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But he's a really good instructor too. I think everybody brings their own kind of style, and I'm really excited to see everyone come together.
And you mentioned this like 3 times, right? And I've thought it every time that you mentioned it, but you said 3 times that I used to go against him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your buddies,
Yeah.
right? It's one of the things that I think is super respectful when I watch like the MMA stuff on TV, is that at the end of the bout, and of course all the nonsense that happens beforehand is
Right.
trying to sell the show.
It's all promo. Yeah.
It is, and I get it, right? It's almost WWE stuff, but anyway, afterwards, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know that I've maybe once or twice you may see a TikTok or something where people aren't necessarily happy at
Yeah.
the end or whatever. Almost every time they come together with respect and with some mutual admiration for each other and go, you know what? You did kick my tail, or hey, even though I kicked your tail, you put up a good fight. And I love that about the sport, right? Because again, it can teach so many things to the younger generations about, you're in competition on the floor, on the field, on the court, whatever it is. But after it's over, you need to be respectful, and you need to win with humbleness, and you need to lose with humbleness,
Yeah.
and it's a great thing the sport teaches.
Yeah, and that's something huge that we're going to be teaching, especially to the kids, having respect and being respectful. I always compare it to, I'm a big football fan.
Right.
So if Cody's running the ball and I tackle him and it knocks the ball loose and he fumbles and my teammate scores a touchdown and we
Right.
win the game, but I broke his arm,
Right.
am I going to be upset that I broke his arm? I mean, I might feel a little bad, but at the end of the day, I did what I needed to for
Yeah.
my team to win, and
Sure.
it's part of the sport, unfortunately.
Sure.
It's no different. I don't want to hurt my opponent, but if I have to choke them unconscious to win the fight, or
It's part of, and
Yeah.
you know that they've signed up for that.
for sure.
You know that they are on board. But, and when you're talking about that, one thing I was thinking about is, it makes it feel like there's a brotherhood there. You're like, oh, this is a guy that I've met fighting, or this is a guy that I used to fight with. Like it's something that especially, like the gym here, if parents are looking for something for their kids to do that's nice, community, oriented, it seems like, and I've never been involved in the sports that much, but the combat sports, but it seems like it's something that's very, very much a close knit brotherhood, and you're
For
like,
sure.
you can build bonds through that.
Absolutely. Yep. I've met some of my best friends, and doing this, I met some really, really good people. So I definitely think that it's going to, bring the community together, and it'll give something productive for the kids
Yeah,
to do.
which we're in need of.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even getting into, like the self-defense side of it. So,
Yeah, sure. So why the name Scandalous? Where does Scandalous Jiu Jitsu come from? I'm sure you've been asked that.
yeah. So Joey Scanlon, like I said, he did some crazy stuff. He had some crazy antics back when he was fighting, like weighing in with leg weights and whatnot. So at some point, somebody gave him the nickname Scandalous Joey Scanlon.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how it came about. When me and him started talking about having the gym, that was kind of what he had already settled on. So
I like it.
I knew I was going to be asked that a lot, but that's okay.
Sure.
No, it's a good story. I like that. I like that
and
reason.
it's one of those names that helps you go into the story, right? Which obviously that's a benefit.
Yep. Joey would show up in like Batman pajamas and stuff, and like he's a goofy guy.
Now, see, when I do that, Brad tells me to go home and change.
Yes, I do.
But yeah, it was
But you can't fight like
No. I won't claim to either.
he's a character for sure, and he definitely earned that nickname.
That's
So
awesome.
we rolled with it.
Nice.
That's
Right.
awesome.
I like that.
So, Scandalous Jiu Jitsu. Someone walks in there off the street. And, Cody wrote this question for 7 to 47, but I'm older than 47, so I'm not going to put 47. Someone walks in. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They're 6 to 60. I fall somewhere in there. What benefits and other things can you and is there a place for everyone from that in those age groups?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of training with kids. I've done a lot of training with people 60 plus. As far as the older gentlemen, or even the women, the flexibility is big. As you get older, your flexibility starts to suffer, and getting into jiu-jitsu, you learn to be flexible again. I have had a lot of people who are like, well, I got a bad back. Like, I don't think I can do it because of my back. And I've talked them into coming, and it helps them. It helps their back flexibility, and it helps their back pain. You got some of these guys that are, on pain pills and stuff because of their back, and it really, really benefits them. And I've had a lot of people say, oh, well, let me lose a little bit of weight and then I'll get in the gym. Just get in there, because that's going to help you lose weight. No one is in there to judge. Everybody is only in there to get better. No one is in there trying to beat you up. There is a competitive nature to it,
Of course.
but a lot of the times we just what we call flow roll. So it's just we're just kind of guiding through it. We're not. If you give me a submission, I'm probably going to take it. Nobody's trying to take each other's heads off. No one's trying to break anyone's arm.
Right.
And so just getting in there and just getting that flexibility going, and doing some form of workout. I don't like lifting weights. I used to like to run, but I'm getting a little older now. It's not as easy. So being able to get in the gym and be with my friends and just, I find it fun, and that's my workout. That's how I work out. It's fun.
Stays active.
Yeah, you got to stay active.
And you're right. When you get older, I can tell by my backswing and my golf game, I don't have the flexibility I used to.
You still have a back?
Well, I was going to say, and back pain too, same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Now, let me ask you this. What would be, because I know, and I don't know, do you all use gis or no, or can, or do you both?
Yeah, so we're going to start off no gi.
Okay.
Joey does gi at his gym.
Okay.
It's definitely a possibility moving forward.
Okay.
But I think right now, just for the simplicity of it, we're going to go ahead and start with no gi.
Okay.
And just kind of test the interest of the public.
And obviously that reduces cost.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So what does this kind of thing cost?
So we're currently monthly membership is $75.
Okay.
And then we have family plans available. So anytime after $75 for the first person, it's $40. So
Okay.
for instance, if a man wanted to join, it was to be $75, and he wanted his wife to join, it'd be additional $40.
Gotcha.
If their oldest kid wanted to join, it'd be additional $40, and
Gotcha.
then $40 after that. I actually had somebody reach out to me a couple weeks ago. Her husband, and their 7 kids want to join.
Oh.
So it would be $75 for the first person and then 40 thereafter.
Gotcha.
With them, we capped it out at $200.
Gotcha.
So it would have been
Nice.
closer to 300. I can't remember how much it was, but we capped it out at 200, and we just said, hey, you pay $200 a month and your whole family can come.
Sure.
So,
And
I
obviously they need something to do in the afternoons.
absolutely. Yeah.
We don't need 8, 9, and 10.
And then we also
I'm
offer
kidding.
some
Have kids.
we also offer some first responder discounts.
Sure.
So yeah.
Gotcha. That's awesome too.
So that's that's where we're going with it. I think Joey's open to, if you're like, oh, I can only make it on Thursdays, that's only four times a month. I think we can work out, some sort of deal with somebody.
Nice.
So go ahead. No, I was going to say, we kind of went over this a little bit about the competitive nature of the gym and that kind of thing, and the gi or no gi and all this kind of is, my son, who I mentioned was a wrestler, he got involved in jiu-jitsu down in Joplin after college, and he went to a tournament up in the city and blah, 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 blah. And obviously he didn't go very far, didn't have time. He got married and other things. But anyway, and, but I asked him about, because obviously he was telling me about the belt progression. So are you all going to get started in that kind of thing? And because that's again, we talked about with those belts that you won,
Mm-hmm.
the color of the belt or the stripes that you get on your belt, that's a big deal for
sure.
people putting in that time.
Yeah. So a lot of gyms do not belt progress without a gi.
Okay.
Joey and Steve, both of our black belts, are comfortable with progressing without a gi.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's definitely the plan with that.
Awesome.
They're willing to do that. So kids progress faster than adults just because they need something to look forward to
Sure.
and be able to get those little notches on their belts. But yeah, that's definitely the goal, is to definitely get people interested and see how far they can go and keep leveling up. So
I think that's awesome. I think it's a great plan.
yeah, for sure. Thanks.
So talking about getting people in the gym,
Mhm.
what would you tell somebody? What would be your pitch if somebody right now is watching this and they're on the fence? Like, man, I'd really like to go, but I'm scared of blah, 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 or I'm hesitant. Like, what's kind of your pitch to those
Yeah,
people?
there's there's nothing really crazy to say. Just give it a chance.
Just-
You
yeah,
just
just come.
gotta give it a chance. The first week is free, so if you come in and you don't like it, then you don't have to come back. Then, the first week's free to anybody. So
That's awesome.
even it's not just for our opening. If in 6 months, if you want to come try it out, first week is still free. If you like it, cool. If you don't, and my big thing is I want to know what people's goals are. Like, what is your goal? Is your goal to compete? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want out of this? Is this just a workout for you? So I really want to know what people's goals are and see what people want and try to
Kinda cater towards that.
Try to meet.
I like that.
Meet their goals for
Yeah, I
sure.
like that too. Because again, you're going to have, if you have 10 people walk through the door, you quite possibly and probably are going to have 10 different goals from every one of those people.
For sure.
So that's great. I like that a lot.
So what classes are you planning to offer? Like, and what age ranges? Are they kids, teens, men, women? I mean, what are you doing?
So for right now, we're going to start off. So anything under the age of 8 is a completely different rule set.
Oh,
So we're
okay.
going to start at 7.
okay.
That'll give kids, even if they just turn 7, that'll give them a year. In training is one thing, but if we go to competition, then their rule set would be different. But so we're going to start at age 7, and then that goes. The kids classes is 7 to 12,
Gotcha.
and then there will be. So it's just really just kids and adults, and the kids over the age of 12, so 13 and up, would fall in the adults class.
Okay.
So right now we're just going to have the 2 classes. We'll see what happens moving forward. We'll see the interest in everybody, and we just got to kind of gauge the interest.
Sure.
So,
Just from there.
but at least from now, we're going to start at age 7. It'll be 7 to 12. I know we do have quite a few of the little kids interested, but again, it's a complex sport,
Yeah,
and
sure.
So that's something we may venture into. We're just kind of playing it by ear and see what happens.
Sure. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we're going to take another little break here on Tailgate TV. We'll be right back.
Tailgate TV is thrilled to partner with O3 Customs, the official hat sponsor of Tailgate TV Sports and Outdoors. But they do more than just hats. They do all kinds of custom engravings, including tumblers and any other needs. Your one-stop shop for engraving. O3 Customs out of Adrian. I created CNS Graphics over 5 years ago in an effort to bring people stunning designs and quality materials. We're a small, local graphic design company with a big dream. And we offer free shipping outside of Bates County on all of our printed materials. We love to create banners, business cards, car magnets, window decals, flyers, and much more. Basically, if Vistaprint can do it, so can we, and all at competitive prices. We pride ourselves in creating cool and stylish graphics and offering top-of-the-line customer service to all of our clients. Reach out to us today and see what we can start creating for you. You can call me, Cody, at 479-385-1120, or message us on Facebook. And remember, your graphic deserve to be cool and stylish.
Welcome back to Tailgate TV. And Todd, we were talked a lot about the benefits of maybe some older people, with their stretching and maybe back pain and that kind of thing. What's some things beyond the fitness and the physical things that you think that jiu-jitsu can bring to Butler?
Yeah, so for me, it really helped with my mindset.
Okay.
Just made me a much stronger mentality. Like I said, I did a majority of my fighting and stuff before I was a cop.
Okay.
And I really think that it helped me a lot on the streets, just being mentally aware and mentally tough, it's a rough world we live in sometimes.
Can be.
Some people don't really like us as law enforcement. And so, being able to also keep your composure,
Mhm.
stay calm in an intense situation. You might be on the ground getting your butt kicked, but being able to think clearly, calm the situation down, think about what your next move is, and really, really just think through that rather than freaking out with the situation.
Well, and because there is, and we haven't talked a lot about it, but from my understanding, there is a lot of that. Keep your composure, know when to do what to do, when to do it, and just think through every situation. Like there's a lot of that in martial arts in general, is there not?
Yeah, absolutely. Breathing, just simply breathing.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're breathing. A lot of people they hold their breath to power through something, or they're getting hit on and they just kind of stiffen up and they stop breathing. Like you can see even just in training with people, their face starts to turn red, and you gotta remind them like, hey, you gotta breathe through that.
Right.
You're gonna last longer if you're breathing. That's
Right.
pretty much common sense. But when you're in that situation, it's not always that easy.
Sure.
The first thing is holding your breath and trying to power through something, or just remaining calm and continuing to breathe, taking big deep breaths. So yeah, for sure.
Well, you called it earlier. You talked about it being a chess match.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the same kind of thing, right?
What is, because there's a lot of people like me who may not know a ton about jiu-jitsu, but they know a little bit and they have these ideas. What do you think maybe a misconception is about jiu-jitsu that you'd like to kind of squash?
Yeah, this one's super easy.
Okay.
People think it just doesn't work.
Okay.
People think it just doesn't work, and unless you've felt it, I've had tons of people come in the gym that are just, they're big, they're strong, they've been in hundreds of street fights.
And they think, hey, you can't do nothing to me.
It's different. And like I said, you get a guy like Joey who's 145 pounds, and he doesn't look like much, but he grabs a hold of you and you're gonna know it. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is just some people just don't think it work.
Okay.
You get it's a joke between like wrestlers. Just stand up,
Right.
It's not always that easy to
Right.
stand up.
Right.
So
Just break out of it.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
So easy.
but yeah, I think that for sure.
Okay.
The common misconception that it just doesn't work, and I think unless you've actually got some experience in it, you either know or you don't.
So anybody that thinks that, they're welcome to come and roll or spar with you, and
Absolutely, yeah.
we'll see if it works or not.
For sure. Yeah.
So and I don't know how much you can answer this
Make sure you
question.
film that if they do come in.
Yeah. We'll
Make sure that-
we'll put it on Tailgate
Absolutely.
TV. Yeah. We'll come live broadcast if somebody wants to do that.
That's good.
That's right.
And I don't know how much of this next question you can answer or not, but have you ever used your jiu-jitsu skills as an officer?
Oh, absolutely. All the
Okay.
time. Not even beyond just the physical, the physical.
Sure, like the breathing we talked about.
Yeah, just like I said, just trying to remain calm. It's easier said than done sometimes, but
Sure.
I would say I worked in the jail over there in Crawford County for several months before I went to the road, and I really used it a lot there. You get some of these younger jailers, detention officers who don't have a lot of experience, and then you get an experienced officer in there, and it's just a little bit different. But yeah, definitely in a jail setting was probably where I used most of mine, just because it's safer.
Yeah. True.
They can always have a shank or something, yes, in a jail setting, but you know that they're probably not armed with a knife. You know they're probably not armed with a gun. Probably didn't sneak a gun in, so
So it is more hand to hand.
definitely a lot more hand-to-hand things, and you can focus on it a lot more as opposed to being out on the streets. If you go hands-on with somebody, you don't know what they have on them.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a dangerous game to play jiu-jitsu on the side of the road, with a
Sure.
guy that you don't really know what he has on his body or on his person. So but still, for sure, there's a lot of. So I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm also a defensive tactics instructor, law
Okay.
enforcement defensive tactics instructor. So I teach I've taught hundreds of officers and detention officers defensive tactics, and being 160 pounds myself, I'm not a big guy, so I really have to rely on those, techniques and to not get myself hurt or the person that I'm affecting the arrest on. So.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing that I've been surprised with. The older I get and the more I learn is, as a kid, you always look at two people and you're like, oh, that guy's bigger and he's got bigger muscles and he's going to win a fight. But you start to learn, especially with age, like it's not all about size and muscle. It's about skill and tactic and knowing what you're doing. So, teaching those things to people, super beneficial.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as if you put a tall, lanky pitcher on a mound, but you put this big, strong guy with big muscles on a mound, and a kid might think that guy with the bigger muscles can throw a ball faster or harder. That's not the case.
No.
It's about technique, and it's no different than, like I said, throwing a baseball, shooting a basketball. It's really no different.
Yeah,
No different.
absolutely.
So MMA led, and maybe not led, but that's what you did first, and then you became a police officer. How do those two things kind of tie into the coaching? What things have you brought from those two things into your coaching of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I mean, like we'd already mentioned, just about, remaining calm in those situations, being patient. You just got to be patient with people, trying to understand that, I kind of went into a lot of different types of mental health and stuff. So, understanding that everybody's coming in the gym, they're there to support your gym, and you don't know what they're going through.
Sure.
Same way on the streets. It's the same way with the guys that you work with. So I was also a supervisor at Crawford County. So being able to get that experience as well, and understand that everyone's different and everyone has their story, and everybody's, maybe struggling with something that you don't know about. So yeah, it's all kind of twisted and turned in together for me. It really has, from fighting, from learning the discipline that it takes to compete and compete at a higher level, and then being able to go, to the police academy and it's been 11 years since I went to the police academy. So a lot of things has changed in law enforcement, a lot of things have changed in the world. And being able to use that experience definitely has kind of just molded me into the type of coach that I believe that I am.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is awesome.
So what would surprise most people about you outside of the gym and the badge? What's something that's
probably that I'm just a normal guy. I'm
Okay.
just a normal guy.
Hates dogs.
Like normal thing. For the most part, like I said, I love football. Play a lot of fantasy football.
Yeah, yeah.
And like hanging out with my friends. I got a good close group of friends, and just normal,
Yeah. Pretty regular, Todd. I see you
regular.
I see you around town, and we come up and we have conversations, and just nice regular dude.
And I just try to be me, whether I'm working or whether I'm off. If I got to handle a situation at work, I got to handle it, and that's my job. And I hope
Sure.
people understand that. Especially being a law enforcement officer in the area that you grew up in, you're going to know a lot of people.
Of course.
No question.
And this doesn't necessarily mean that if somebody did something that they're a bad person. Maybe they just made a bad decision.
Which does happen.
We all made bad decisions at some point in
Mhm.
our life. So, just treating people with respect for sure, and just trying to be more understanding of everybody and their situations. So
Nice. Yeah. And I do think that you do that. At least every interaction I've had with you,
appreciate it.
you have. Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of patience with
Yeah.
some
yeah.
people.
See, that's what me and Brad have such a great friendship. God's trying to teach Brad patience,
Oh,
and that is why he put me back in his life.
it is a struggle.
So speaking of patience, I'm going to steal one of Brad's questions. Some folks, they just can't wait when is the grand opening? When do classes start? And how can somebody sign up? Do they just show up? Do they go online? How do I get started?
Yeah, so July 1st is our opening.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call it our grand opening.
Sure.
There's still some things we're working on, but we are going to be up and running July 1st. Kids class will be at 5:30. Adults class will be at 6:30. And so, yep, like I said, first week's free. Come on up that day. Don't need to sign up prior to.
Just show up.
Just show up. Joey's got all of his stuff on his laptop that we'll get everything going. You'll sign up for your free week, and we'll see how that goes for you. And if you like it, then you can commit. And if you don't, then no hard feelings.
Awesome.
So,
Now, if somebody wants more information, if they already know, like, okay, I'm sold, I want to sign up, is there some way they can reach out, or is there something to do for them to go ahead and get that signed up, or is it just show up that day and we'll take care of it then?
yeah, if you have any other questions, we have our Facebook page up and running. So there's a phone number on there you can contact. You can message the Facebook page.
And that goes under Scandalous Jiu Jitsu.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Look those up. That'll be good.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many people that and honestly, while you were talking, I am kind of filing through names, right, of people that I'm like, I bet you they'd be interested. I bet you they'd be interested. Bet you they'd be interested. So yeah, get up there and find out what it's about. That's the main thing. Sure.
Now, we're going to jump into Cody's fun questions.
Okay.
And some of these you've seen, some of these you have not. Some of these are newly curated. But we're just going to rapid fire and see if you got some answers.
Do it.
If you could roll or fight any celebrity or fictional character, who are you choosing and why?
Justin Bieber.
Okay, and why?
Because
That's why.
me and him are close to the same size, and he actually trains jujitsu.
Does he?
He does.
Okay.
There's a lot of celebrities who do train jujitsu. I know Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill lost.
Now he lost a lot of weight. Looks good.
Training
He is.
what's the guy off of that 70s show?
Which one? There's a lot of.
Yeah, what's his name?
One of the kids or the adults?
The kids off the show.
Like Ashton Kutcher. Okay.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Who's from Iowa, in case y'all didn't know that.
He trains jujitsu.
Okay.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Several people for sure. Tamba Hali, old Chiefs. Outside linebacker, defensive end. Yeah, he trains right over in Olathe, Kansas with a buddy of mine, Tyson Kilby. He's a law enforcement officer over there and owns his own gym. And he just posted the other day that Tamba Hali got his black belt.
Oh, that's
so
pretty nice.
He's a very large individual.
Yes, he is.
So,
Big.
So that's why you chose Justin, not him.
correct.
Yeah. Do you think you and Justin would be a good matchup?
I think so. I think I could take him.
Okay. Now, if you ever get him down here for that spar, let me know. I want a concert after or something. I'm a believer. Yeah, I am. Yeah. If you had to pick some theme music for the gym,
Don't say Justin Bieber song.
what song are you picking?
Okay. Remember the Name.
Okay.
Oh.
I know I can't remember who sings it, but that was a big song back when we were growing up.
Yeah.
I think everybody warmed up to it in their layup line at
Yeah.
basketball.
I think that's the
Yeah.
that's the one. We'll see
Yeah.
if we can get
like that too.
I do like that one. If someone comes into the gym in Crocs and blue jeans, what are you telling them?
If somebody comes in the gym in Crocs and blue jeans, it's probably me.
Okay.
So
I said
I'm gonna say,
if he comes in Crocs and blue jeans, we gotta get rid of that
I'm
question.
gonna say, come on in.
Come on in.
Come
on in.
Friends
Okay.
now. We're friends
Okay.
now.
I'm going to remember that next time I wear those zebra print Crocs you want me to throw away.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the urge to say to someone, you have the right to remain in a chokehold? Ever tapping somebody out in the mat and just...
I don't know about specific verbiage, but I've definitely had the urge to hang on to it a little longer.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And the last one, what is something that somebody could say their first time in the gym that would just make you roll your eyes at them?
I mean, I do it all the time when people talk very intensely about all their experience that they have, but then they get in there and it's clear that they don't have any experience.
Yeah. Or they come in talking that whole, this isn't going to work. I've done this and jiu-jitsu's not going to work. And then,
This looks easy.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was like, there's so many people that just go, it's just martial art. Well, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Well, Todd, it's been a blast. Enjoyed having you on.
Yeah.
We've got some sponsors
We do have
that
sponsors.
we like to thank.
Absolutely. We would like to thank CNS Graphics.
Great folks. I think they've helped make Scandalous Jiu Jitsu look even better.
They did.
I'm gonna tell
And now you've got new letters up top. Those look pretty sharp too.
The
Saw
neon
those?
sign.
Is that what? Okay, I haven't seen it lit up.
It's
Didn't
a
know
neon
that.
Sign. Yep.
That's
Well,
exciting.
Mid-America Live.
Great
They
fun.
do a great job for us. Prepcast, obviously, great job. Obviously, they're a little bit of hiatus over the summer, but football is right around the corner. And I mean right around the corner. It seems very quick.
Yeah,
2 grandbabies and then football season's all up. That's my summer.
your summer. Yep.
Yep. Sonic, obviously, they
Always hooking us up.
great drinks. We appreciate them over there. O3 Customs, man, that guy does.
Another locally law enforcement owned business. And
does.
and used to when we started with them, we've watched them grow. You know, we started with them hats. They hooked us up with hats. They were our hat sponsor and our official hat sponsor. And now they give us tumblers. They give us shirts. They do all kinds of projects. Got my dad a Father's Day gift. It was a spatula set, all engraved. Super sweet.
Yeah, very nice.
He does good work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super stuff. And he's a great guy to work with, honestly.
Yeah.
He's been tremendous. Emmanuel Baptist Church, want to thank them again, growing like crazy over there. A lot of baptisms, a lot of great things going on.
VBS coming up in August, I believe.
VBS, and honestly, VBS all over Bates County.
It is, yes. There's
for Butler.
if you
see the
can't make it to
signs.
IBC's, you can find another church that's coming. But IBC's is August, I think first weekend in August or
Yeah.
first week in August,
I think
something like that.
they're planning a big pool party for the end of that.
They are.
Check that out. And the Butler Chamber of Commerce.
Who's also planning a big pool party in
Really close to the same time.
Not the same day. Didn't get that. But yeah, no, I'd like to thank all of those guys. Really like to thank Todd for coming on, and we'll see you next time on Tailgate TV.